Our guest today is Aviv Tene of TestM, a new app developed to help its users evaluate performance of any smartphone in 5 minutes or less at no cost. Find out more, visit testm.com. Our sponsor for this episode is Neopost IS-280. Hi, Aviv. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing fabulous, and I'm grateful to have you out here today. You are going to talk to our audience about a wonderful new app that you've created for smartphones, TestM. And this is not just for people who are selling their phones to find out, what capability your phone has so that people can know what they're getting into when they buy your phone. But it's also a great app for people who are looking to buy a used phone, as my partner just did, actually. He didn't want to spend an arm and a leg on an $800 smartphone, so he said, let me go get one that's used. So this way, they could go to TestM and find out the capabilities of the particular phone they're buying and know what they're getting into before they buy their app, which is awesome. Share with our audience a little bit about the background of TestM and how you came to creating this app.
So the app was actually created in a phone lab. It was one of those labs where if something is wrong with your phone, you go and you attempt to fix it before you replace it. And the person who came up with it is currently our CEO. And he is working in a lab at this time, and he had this intersection that we all have. We are about to upgrade the phone, and we're wondering, should we get a new phone? Are we about to spend all this money? Let's say, for example, the iPhone X just came out, and I happen to have one right here, but the new features of it are the wireless charging and the facial recognition. And is that worth a bump of over $400 for someone that's in the market? Or can, your average consumer look at and get a device that does everything but those two features for less than $500? And that's really a decision point that a lot of us come to. And there's plenty of good devices out there that do everything we need them to do at less than half the price. And now that we've crossed that $1,000 mark, it's a very good idea to look at the secondary market and see, maybe we can get a device that does almost everything we want it to for less than half the price. And he was at that intersection, and he thought to himself, how do I test if this phone is working? When you buy a house, you get an inspector to come out and do a full inspection. If you buy a car today, you take it to a mechanic and you want to look under the hood and make sure everything is in proper working condition. Our phones have become that third biggest expense in our life, and there hasn't been anything out there that allows us to check as lay people the actual condition of each and every component of the phone, and TestM solves for that problem. Wow. So he was sitting in that lab, and for himself and also for friends and family, because they knew he was working in that lab, they were like, can you check this phone if it's good? Can you see how much we can get for our old phone? And he found that it takes him a good 15 to 20 minutes to test even just the speaker, or 20 minutes just to test the screen of a device. And you got to take it apart, which in some cases voids the warranty. And it's a long and involved process to do it in a lab, even by a professional. Wow. And he said to himself, a very simple thing, it's got to be a better way. That's how we come up with a lot of things we come up with. And he spent a lot of time, a lot of thinking, and actually tested over 2,500 devices and came up with this solution.
Wow. I love this because it was last year. This is actually, you're not going to believe this, but I got my very first smartphone last year. And hearing everyone around me getting these really handy dandy Androids or Apples, I was like, there's no way I'm spending $800. I don't need a camera. One of my friends has a smartphone that she can draw on. I don't care to draw on my smartphone. So I simply wanted something that I could maybe check my emails and do a few texts and call people, and that's it. So I actually went out with a price range in my head that I didn't want to spend anything more than, say, 50 or 60 bucks. And my friends were like, that is not possible. There's no cell phone out there for that price. Well, I actually, kept with that in mind, and I actually found one, a Samsung that was an older model that does just that. It doesn't have a heck of a lot of memory, but it does just what I need it to do. And so I love what you're talking about when it comes to TestM, because there's a lot of components I'm sure that people have on their cell phones right now that they don't even know how to use or even know that it exists in their cell phone.
Precisely. And we all find ourselves at that point where do we want the latest, greatest thing, and how much are we actually going to use it? And quite honestly, companies like Apple and Samsung really capitalize on the thing that it's not just the usefulness of it, but the fact that you need to be identified with having that latest device. And their branding works in that way. And it's really a great way for them to keep the consumer buying more and more. And they have really, really innovative things. But when it comes down to it, 90% of what you do on your phone is make calls, do texts, check your email, and use a few, let's say about 10 apps like navigation and your Yelp app, or apps that you use on a daily basis. And then the 10% of the new features is hardly ever used.
Wow. Now, there's something I'm not really certain about. I recently got a Fitbit, and it's not compatible with my older Samsung, but I'm wondering, why do cell phones have so many apps? Why is it not like my computer at home where I can just like go onto Facebook without having to download an app? Why do phones or cell phones use so many different apps in order to do each function?
So I wish I was technical enough to answer that, with a great amount of knowledge. But what it comes down to, and even Windows is moving to using apps. I think Windows 10 is basically pushing you to use apps on your desktop as well.
Wow.
So I think apps are just a lot more accessible for people, and they find it a lot more intuitive to navigate through those things. And we're probably more efficient on the back end. But again, I'm not the expert on that.
Well, that's interesting. So if someone today is out there with their phone, they said, I want to get something new, sell my phone so I can get a better iPhone. Where do they begin? How do they get started with TestM?
So usually we find that people sell only after they have the handy dandy new device in, and they've uploaded everything from the old device to that new device. And only then most people, again, some people do plan ahead, but most people only then get to that moment is, okay, how much can I get for this old one? And at that point, your best bet is either someone or you go online and sell it. If you know someone that's in the market that you've had a conversation with and they're in the market for it, and you do a hand-to-hand sale, that's great. Most of us will find ourselves either posting an ad on eBay, Amazon, Craigslist, or any of the other online sale places. I was just saying, what this allows you to do is really increase that resale value, because as a consumer, if you're looking on one of those three sites, you have this trepidation of, I'm getting something, but I can't really check it. And I'm not going to go to a lab and give them $75 just to run a diagnostic after I get it. And only then, if I find a problem, then I go on. So what this allows you to do is ask the seller, please run a TestM report. He runs it, sends you the report, and it's in real time. And you see that a third party has verified the condition of the phone. So if he says it's good as new and everything is working, you actually have that report that tells you we've tested 20 components on this device and it really is working. And then he puts it in a box, you get it. And unless something happened between the time when he put it in the box, then you're getting a good thing when it's shipped to you.
Yeah, I get that. Now, Aviv, is there any way for people to get a good handle on, say, what phone is best for them and their usage? Can TestM do that too, or it just really tells you all the different components on that phone and what is the capability of it at this moment?
So at this point, we can just tell you if the components are working. There's so many different phones out there. So Apple has usually, now it has the X and the 2 models of the 8. And it's really an individual question, almost as big as, what car should I get? It really depends on how you use it, what the things you use the most are, and what you like aesthetically and how you use it. But there's questionnaires out there that are put out by, I guess, magazines that tell you, if you do like an IQ test or a compatibility test, that will tell you what kind of phone you should be getting. But ultimately, people tend to stick with what they know. I know that, Apple users, for example, have a very hard time trying to switch to Samsung and vice versa. People do stick with the platforms they know until there's a reason to make them switch. And that's one of the reasons they come up with these new features, is they're hoping this feature will take somebody out of one camp and put them to the other. Most of the smartphone users have pretty much settled in on the Android camp or the camp, and the other platforms have sort of died off. We had BlackBerry about 6 years ago, was still a factor in the market, and that's kind of been dying off. But most people have picked one of the two platforms or are sticking with them, and they're constantly improving and coming up with new gadgets and new ways to try to convince one user to leave one platform and go to the other.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsor, Neopost. Think about all the time small businesses spend to process and send mail and packages. If we spend just 15 minutes a day doing it, that's more than 7 full days a year focused on mailing and shipping. That's crazy! I recently spoke to Neopost, and they told me one of the smartest things to start doing today to save time and money is to use the IS-280 postage meter to handle all our mail processing without ever leaving my office. The IS-280 weighs, then automatically tells me what postage amount my mail or package needs. Not only do I pay 6% less to send first-class mail, but time is also saved by not having to run to the post office for postage. The IS-280 truly lets me spend more time managing business and less time managing mail. For a limited time, our listeners can get up to 6 months free by using the promo code SAVVY. Visit neopost280.com/savvy and enter your zip code to see if you qualify, followed by the promo code SAVVY to lock in 6 months free. Most of the time for work and in my personal life, I've always used IBM, Windows, and such. And I've never used Apple. But is it a comparative type of thing when it comes to smartphone and Android that if, hey, you're an IBM user, you pretty much go to Android, and if you're an Apple user and your desktop, you pretty much go to Apple iPhones, that type of thing?
So Apple has actually been very successful in breaking that mold. Logically, what you just described is exactly how you would expect it to happen, but the iPhone has many other things that are factors that are not necessarily translating from the computer world. So we find that my son, for example, is a diehard, PC user. He will not work with a Mac device on his desktop, but he has an iPhone and he's not switching. So we have many, many examples like that where the iPhone either has that cool factor, has that predictability. So every iOS looks exactly the same. And once you get hooked into that way of doing things, it's very hard for you to switch. It's really many, many different things go into the selection of a phone. And I find that a great many diehard PC users that do not like Mac use iPhones anyway.
Wow.
But generally, I think the one thing you could translate from one to the other is Android gives you more ability to actually go in there and change things. Whereas in Apple, you're pretty much doing things the way they expect you to. There's not much ways in customization of the interface and other things that the Android devices might allow you to do. But like you pointed out, most of the population doesn't really look for that ability. They're happy with what they get and they love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I see that TestM also supports almost every phone out there. It supports over 6,500 models, correct? Both. Wow. So there's not too many phones that would not be able to work with TestM.
Not too many out there that we know of. And again, if you run into a phone and you send us an email, we'll try to provide you with an answer. I can't guarantee we'll build a whole TestM platform just for that phone. But, if you have that one device in 10,000 that we are unable to test, we'll try to help you out anyway.
Aw, that's awesome. And they can go to do that right now or anytime that they're ready to get started at testm.com, correct?
Absolutely. That's a great way to start. And then depending on your device, you go to your Apple Store and download the app from there, or Google Play if you have an Android device. And we see it, kids are using it. Elder people are using it. Everybody it's so intuitive. It walks you through the entire process. It's very easy to use.
Does your company see in the near future creating any other wonderful apps that would be helpful to cell phone users?
So we have a few ideas in the pipeline, but really what we are focused on right now is making this a success. We've had to date with very, very little, just launched a little over a month ago, and we have 130,000 users. So we're really focused on being able to support them and making sure that the entire team is aware of anything that comes up along the way and is able to address those needs. There's some great minds behind this, and I'm sure that we're thinking about how to capitalize on this once it takes hold. But right now, 100% of our attention is really focused on making sure that this works without a hitch.
And I'm sure it is working without a hitch. And it's such an awesome idea for anyone out there. Because I've heard so many people, like I just told you a while ago, my partner just was in the market for looking for a new cell phone. I recently got one, my very first one. And I'm sure a lot of other people out there are thinking, I don't need to go get that $1,000 cell phone. There is an option. And now TestM can make sure you get the best option. So everyone listening in, go to testm.com and find out today how you can get that best phone, either to sell the present phone you have or get another phone that you can trust. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with regarding TestM?
No, I think we covered it all. I have plenty of other testimonials if you want to get into them. We have, 12-year-olds who are going to a repair shop and get the screen replaced. You know how we sometimes drop it and there's these spider webs. So the kid went into a store and he replaced the screen. He was charged 50 euros. This was in Spain. Mm-hmm. And what we heard back is he came back home and the 3D option on his iPhone 7 no longer worked, even though he just got a new screen.
Wow.
He ran TestM on it, and TestM told him that's not an original screen. The screen is not working properly. He went back to the store, and the guy said, oh, I didn't use an OEM Apple screen. I just gave you a replacement screen. For 20 euros more, you can get the original. So it's a good example of, a 12-year-old. In Spain, sort of catches the repair guy in trying to shortchange him on a lesser part when he replaced his phone. And he has the tools to do this himself and prove this. And that's just we love that story so much. We tell it, to everyone we meet. So there's many other testimonials and examples of how this is useful. The other thing we inserted on it, because we find, people really love it and use it on a daily basis, even when they're not buying and selling a phone. So I call them the battery hypochondriacs. Like when you go to an airport and you see somebody sitting there, with a 3-foot cord and he's sitting in an awkward position and you say, how much battery you have? He's like, oh, I'm at only at 98%. Mm-hmm. And they're about to get on a flight and they're really, really worried about, is my battery going to run out? So we have a battery testing function. A lot of people walk around and they're worried, do I have Wi-Fi? Do I not have Wi-Fi? Am I using my cellular data? Am I going to exceed that? And then even if they have Wi-Fi, they're like, oh, I need to get on a really important call. I just want to make sure my Wi-Fi is good. So we built in a component that tests the speed and the connectivity of your Wi-Fi wherever you are, and you can actually use it on a daily basis, not just when you buy and sell. Our main goals are to help you when you're buying and selling, of course, or when you need to repair. And you need to make sure that the person that's repairing your device is really telling you the truth and knows what they're doing. Yeah. And that's the main 3 things we designed it for. But from the feedback we're getting, people just love using it. There's a lot of people out there that have the need to know that everything's okay all the time and want to be able to test it. And that's a great toy for them.
Yeah, it is. And I love the fact that it empowers the consumer to know about what's going on with their cell phone, because me included, I'm not very tech savvy. And I'm thinking a good many people listening in are also not tech savvy. So this gives you the capability, as you said, to really know what's going on ahead of time, not be gypped. It's like kind of going to the car repair guy and they try to take advantage of you and you don't quite know how a car operates, the inner workings. And this actually gets you to know the inner workings of your cell phone, which is totally awesome. And I also like the fact that you can check other things to see how the functionality of your phone is going. If there's anything that needs to be fixed that you're not aware of, perhaps. Maybe there's something that's starting to come up as a problem that now you can go and get fixed before it becomes a bigger problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
And I love the word you used, empowered, because I've had that, in the car industry my entire life. Is every time I went in to repair a car, I couldn't tell you when they started speaking their jargon. I was just like, I don't know. I mean, I try to figure out the guy's honest, but honestly, when he's telling me about the specific parts of the car, I had no clue if he's just throwing words at me or if there's a real problem with the car. And I kind of felt helpless.
Yeah.
And just like having a mechanic next to you, somebody you trust right next to you when you go to that shop, the goal of TestM is to be that trusted third party that tells you, yeah, we checked it. It's good.
Yeah. And then that way you don't get taken advantage of. You can go to a repair shop, show them the report and say, I know you can't gyp me. I already know ahead of time. And it gets you on equal level footing right from the start. No game.
Exactly.
Well, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much, Aviv, for coming to share all this. I know our listeners are going to be super excited to go there and go to testm.com, everyone. And again, I want to thank you, Aviv, for coming to Savvy Business Radio this evening.
Thank you.
Winty Aviation T-Shirt Art, a one-stop shop solution for all your graphic art needs, from logos, business cards, book covers, and banners. Contact winty.com today in order to find out how your design could become a reality.